So, folks, I'm delighted to be here. This is a very different gig for me. Thanks ever so much to Belinda for the invite. I'm not entirely sure why I'm here, as you'll see in a moment, except for the fact that I'm going to take you on a whistle-stop tour. Belinda talked about the revolution, adventure revolution. I'm going to chat to you about adventure evolution, if you like, and all the things that have changed in my world and my obscure little view of our sector and our industry over the last, probably the last sort of 10 years or so, really, focusing mostly on the last 7 years. Things have changed so much. We wrote the 2015 Getting Active Outdoors report about the motivations of the outdoor sector, who does it, why they do it, what fires them up, and what they're getting active outdoors for. And that was a really sort of exciting project to be a part of. And I'm more excited about the fact that this lovely quote by the Ordnance Survey has now been trumped, as you'll see in a minute. And I think there are some more authoritative pieces of research, which I'm going to give a nod to later on in this talk. Obviously, since then, COVID has been a really massive event, and that's changed things massively. We'll talk about that. But actually, the way in which we manage visitors, manage visitor safety, a lot of things have evolved over the last few years. So I'm going to take you on a proper little whistle-stop tour. So buckle up. This is going to be quick. This is not me in my natural habitat, right? That's me where I belong. I do not belong indoors, and I do not belong talking arse to people when I'm not an academic or a researcher in any kind of way. But we'll give it our best shot. There are some very good reasons for me being here, professionally, but also personally. I live in North Wales with my family. In 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer. Belinda talked earlier about those transition moments. Oh man, this second to having children was the biggest adventure of my life, and I would not be stood here today if it weren't for all of those lessons I'd learned from every adventure I'd ever been on, and the time spent in the great outdoors with loved ones, as well as a lot of drugs and medical intervention as well, obviously. But actually, this is where I belong. I'm an international mountain guide. Please don't hold that against me. We all know the jokes about mountain guides. The collective noun for guides is a bore of mountain guides. There's only one of me, so that's okay. And unlike most mountain guides, I am absolutely fascinated by other people and what motivates them, what gets them sort of into the outdoors, why they take part in it, but how we can use those opportunities at our fingertips to solve the problems of society. Okay, how we can get more people more active more often. And that's been the sort of the backstop, if you like, the driver of my career for 25, 30 years. We have decreasing activity levels. And this slide I stole from Public Health England. It's well out of date now. And the really worrying thing is it's getting worse, not better. Okay, so things are going backwards from this point of view, from a public health point of view. Sitting is now the new smoking. Inactivity is a really massive problem for society. And we can do something about that. Now, there was a time when we used to look across the Atlantic at those kind of, plump, pasty white people over in America and kind of think that they were the big problem. Actually, the UK is worse. And this is yet another, up there with sort of COVID deaths, this is another league table that Great Britain really doesn't want to be leading on, right? Because actually the story's not pretty. So it's not something that happens to other people. It's not something that happens elsewhere. This is a massive problem for the UK society. For those of you taking pics, I'm more than happy to share these slides with you later on if that works. So don't feel compelled. What we discovered in 2015 was that the major motivations for people getting active outdoors, we wanted to know why they do it. The number one was to spend time with family. Okay, that was the biggest reason to get outside and get active. For young people, the biggest thing was to have fun with their friends and social connections, socialize with people. And what we discovered was that there was, albeit it was 10%, it was a massive percentage of young people who saw the outdoors as an alternative to traditional sport. So sport with a capital S was a bit of a dirty word. All that kind of whistleblowing, clipboards, rules and regulations, white lines, people don't necessarily like that. And you will know from your experience, as I have enjoyed from 30 years of working in the outdoors, oh man, when I was at Plas in Brenin, I managed a team of misfits. These were all the people that never got selected for the school footy team. Huge number of dyslexics. In our world, that's a superpower, not a negative. And suddenly we're sitting on this kind of untapped potential of all these different people and being able to see the benefits. And that sort of family and friends thing can be a real key multiplier for you guys. If you want to have more impact and reach more people, just understand that that can multiply things up. So, what else did we learn? Well, I'll keep this really simple. We have a little bit of a challenge. We recognised out of about 11,000 survey respondents, people fell into 8 main motivations. These are motivations, not personality types. But if you're motivated as a tribe member, like I might be accused of being, hey, if I get excited about using a map and a compass and tying knots, then my overwhelming urge is to teach people how to use a map and a compass and how to tie knots. And it turns out that actually I'm a minority, and the majority are coming to learn how to paint, how to engage with wildlife, how to take photographs. You know, they're not necessarily there for the same reasons that I am. So we discovered that the outdoor industry has a real opportunity to give the people that are coming to us what they want, not just deliver what we think is the important thing. So really genuinely understand their needs. The other thing that stood out was that if we can give people a high quality deep immersion in nature by any vehicle in their formative teenage years, they will stick with it for life. Sure, they'll stop at 25, they'll drop out, life gets in the way, they'll have babies and degrees and jobs and do all that kind of stuff. The vast majority will come back to it, 35 to 44, and they will stick with it forever. 95% of people got into the outdoors in their youth and have carried on getting active outdoors for the rest of their lives. And that is something that, you know, if you were looking at the post-16 drop-off in football, other sports can't say this, but we don't even notice it, right? We take it for granted. But this is something extraordinary that we need to capitalise upon. Of course, you know, Belinda's already mentioned the issues with young people becoming more and more disconnected from nature, and it's a real problem for us. You know, we have to find ways of getting them that high quality deep immersion, and we have to find ways, especially if we can catapult this or piggyback this on the climate change agenda. The only way people are going to look after the planet is if they learn all about it, okay, and they learn to appreciate it and to respect it and to enjoy it, and it's something that they want to savor, and it's a win for their physical and mental health and well-being. So there is no negative in this, right? So it's a massive opportunity. You're going to see that picture again on the right-hand side. And I don't apologise for that at all. I don't know about you lot, right? But I come from a different generation when, like, it was okay and absolutely fantastic to just go and have jolly spiffing adventures. And oh man, I think back to my hitchhiking to the Alps at 17. You know, my son is now 17. He went flying off to Croatia with his mobile phone and so well connected, and we could check in on him every few minutes. I was hitchhiking to Chamonix at 17. My parents didn't even know where I was going. I sure as hell didn't know what I was doing. Somehow I survived it, and I'm still here. And that used to be okay. But the thing I think is fascinating, right? If you want to teach kids how to speak French, you wouldn't dream of letting them learn French without speaking French, okay? And if we want people to be risk literate, we don't stand a chance of letting them understand how to manage risk appropriately if we don't let them have a go, right? And that is a personal soapbox, but really, really super important. Especially when the reality is the risks are so small comparatively. Don't worry about the numbers and the links, you'll get all this later on, but let me just reassure you, nobody actually knows how risky our activities are, all right? Just done a stack of research on this for a different project recently. Even modern publications and modern research will have data in here that harks back to the General Household Survey of 1993, right? Nobody actually knows how dangerous walking is. What we can say is that actually it's more dangerous to drive to the start of a walk than it is to go for a walk. Things like swimming is more dangerous, way more dangerous. Fishing, hey, that's way more dangerous than going out for a walk, 3 times as much. You know, going horse riding or motorbiking, we're talking 20 times, 40 times more dangerous playing cricket. You know, except apparently we can just do all that every Wednesday afternoon at school, and that's totally cool. But the outdoors is a risky thing. So we need to change that perception, because going outdoors really is not high risk. There is nothing gained. The Visitor Safety Group, the guys that manage all of the sort of national parks and big sort of parkland areas, huge landowning consortium, you know, the water authorities, forestry, national trust, all those kind of people, they've all acknowledged for a while that the answer is not to stop people from doing this. The answer is to help them do it responsibly. And that's super important. Every country has had their Lime Bay moment where they've had a kind of catastrophe and they've come up with regulation. Everybody is now dismantling that regulation. Okay, so they're basically all kind of going, actually, an industrial health and safety model doesn't work in the outdoors because it doesn't recognise that there are positive life-affirming benefits, not just negative harm from taking risks. That's where you guys come in. You've all twigged it, you've clocked it, you've realised it, you understand the positive benefits. We now need to be better at articulating that to those who don't understand it yet or don't quite get it in proportion. So it's a brilliant opportunity for you. The great news is that, as ever, we're seeing more and more evidence coming out that we can wave under people's noses. So this is a joint consensus statement between the medical world and the sporting world going, hey, we've done the research. It is safer for people, even for those with long-term conditions, to be physically active. There is no reason not to, just because you think it's risky. That's good, isn't it? That's brilliant. And for a moment there, I thought I was going to be able to show you a photograph of the new Prime Minister in a boat, but still maybe next week, we don't know. Belinda asked me to talk to you about fundraising opportunities, and over the years of doing various different projects, I've learned some really key things. So I'm going to go straight in. Fundraising 101, this is what you need to know. Job 1, recruit a professional fundraiser. They are literally worth their weight in gold. Every time I've learnt loads, and I've got back more than 10 times what I've spent. Okay, so do it. The big thing they've taught me is to work out what you've got that has value and that is investment worthy. So basically, it's like a Venn diagram, right? You've got a load of stuff, and there's a load of trusts out there that have got a load of money to spend, and all you need to do is make sure that what you've got that's of value meets their need to give that cash away. They are going to give it away. That's what they want to do. You've just got to make sure that you choose the ones that are the best fit, okay? That's super important. And more than ever, to do that, you need to be able to demonstrate an evidence base, which we're going to go on to talk about. Big lessons, if you want to get that AdventureMind grant up and running, if you're going to fill a gap in a social need, then public and third sector charities are where you need to go looking. If you're going to deliver aspiration and achievement on an individual basis, that's what private investors will bank. So make sure you just go looking in the right direction. As I said there, you need to understand what your reach and impact is. So let's talk about that for a minute. One way of looking at that when we wrote the Mountain Impact Report in 2018 is just to look at the numbers. So there are 150 providers, okay, so people delivering mountain training courses. They train over 175,000 candidates. Each one of those candidates, just out of interest, how many of you folks have got a mountain training qualification? Put your hands up, of some sort. Yeah, it's quite a percentage, isn't it? On average, a mountain leader will work with 163 people each year. So we can kind of extrapolate that and say basically 1.5 million people are trained by Mountain Training England leaders every year, right? Good numbers. Could be nonsense, not quite sure. It depends on your extrapolation. I'll defer to the researchers for that. But the interesting thing, and I don't expect to read through this, when we actually looked beyond the numbers at what is the reach and the influence, where do we find these people, we suddenly discovered that mountain training was like inextricably woven into the fabric of an active nation. People just did not go on a charity walk or a sponsored abseil unless there was somebody signing that off, tying the knots, taking responsibility for it in the background. Okay, the military could not achieve their adventurous training objectives if it weren't for a system of qualified people in the structure to do that. We found that the police would not learn all about sort of lowland search and rescue techniques if it weren't for mountain training people. The RSPCA wouldn't rescue their animals, massive. And suddenly we got, this is about 2018 now, between 2016 to 18, people started really waking up to demonstrating the benefits with some proper evidence and developing that evidence base. Belinda's already mentioned the Outward Bound Trust. They did some fantastic research work using recognisable scales and measures that were academically robust to demonstrate how many young lives they would touch. But what really interested me when I saw this was not the numbers, it was the qualities. Resilience, determination and perseverance are fundamental to whether we succeed or fail in all walks of life. And that's really, really super important. These are really, really good qualities and we're starting to be able to prove that we can deliver and develop these through outdoor initiatives. And certainly speaking from my cancer experiences, we draw on our past experiences when we come up with a new adventure and a new unknown challenge. You're going, okay, different game. Wasn't sure about playing this one, but what have I learned? Where do I go to learn how to handle this? I go back to the things that I learned in my formative years. And for years, I would say that talent identification in sport, because it's heavily funded, was very good at this. The most reliable predictors in talent ID were grit and resilience. Okay, those are the things that separate your Olympic world-class number 1 from your Olympic number 10. Okay, but hey, they don't have the ownership on this. Whilst they might have been going, hey, how do we put the speed bumps in the talent pathway? How do we give these people things adversity that they need to deal with, some uncertainty that they need to overcome? Any of you have listened to Adam Peaty's coach. She is amazing, not holding a stopwatch. She's amazing at the full package of going, right, we're going to go off to this European event and I'm going to steal your toothbrush and your water supply and I'm going to give you a shit bed to sleep in and I'm going to do I'm going to make sure you forget your kit. Everything that could possibly happen to you, I'm going to make sure it's happened to you in training so that if it ever happens to you in a world-class event, you're not fazed by it. Yeah? And they've been good at it for years. Why shouldn't we buy into that? And the reality is that people are waking up. So we are now at sort of pre-COVID growth. You'll see that walking for leisure and walking for travel have boomed every year. Give you a sense of scale, 2 million people play football more than twice in 28 days. 3.5 million people take part in adventure sports. And football's supposed to be the nation's favourite game. What we are doing is not fringe and left field, right? It is mainstream in a big way. 20.3 million people go walking for leisure. That is 10 times as many people as play football. So that's super important. In COVID, we saw it boom. As if that wasn't good enough, it boomed again, right? So more and more people getting active outdoors, getting out from their doorsteps and taking part in activity. And the growth percentages are massive there, okay? We also found that was a worldwide spike. And it's worth noticing that 10 years ago, we didn't have any turnstiles in the outdoors. We weren't very good at measuring participation. Now everybody's got this amazing little data collector in their hands called a mobile phone. And suddenly we're getting really robust stats and really robust data on what people are doing. So Strava went through the roof through COVID and all around the world. So new people, new opportunities for us. We know that they're heading outdoors for exercise. We've got space for everyone, and that was a commodity during the pandemic. We also knew that more people would take a staycation in 2020. So we wanted to know how we could engage with them. Who are they? How are they getting here? What are they motivated by? And how can we sort of mitigate the damage of that? Because we're not set up for 85% more people all of a sudden. So that could be a challenge. And most importantly, how can we retain them? What's going to make them come back? How can we make sure they have a brilliant time so that they don't just go back to their previous thing and they come back in the future? Now, this was important. We combined with the Ordnance Survey, because they've got the data apps and the number of followers, and we combined with camping, and you'll hear why camping is important in a minute, but we teamed up with the Lake District National Park. And when they did their snap visitor surveys for us, 19% of people that arrived in the lakes were there for the first time ever. 24% of people were coming back to a place that they were fond of. It was nostalgia for their childhood. They'd been there in their youth and they were coming back to it. Okay? And that's really important. I want you to hold that thought. These people were different and they were more diverse than we could possibly imagine. They'd usually be elsewhere. And by those, I mean geographically, they might be on a holiday in Turkey. Commercially, they might be buying a transactional package off a tour operator rather than a transformational experience in the great outdoors. And philosophically, that's a major difference, right? They're looking at different markets in different places for a different thing. And because they've got less experience, they need greater support, not chastisement. They need our help to engage with the outdoors. So we need to make it really easy, really high quality, and we need to get rid of all those barriers. And even for folks like ourselves, who, if we're not at the sort of high-end hardcore of adventure, we still need to dumb it down and make it easier for people and pitch things at the right level. And that was one of the things we really understood. Even an Ordnance Survey Maps app is too complicated, okay? When we asked them what they'd be doing this time last year on a day like this, 80% of them would be doing something different. So let's have a little think about what that something different is, right? If they would have been on a water sports holiday in Turkey, then their customer journey would have looked like this. They would have had an amazing marketing department, amazing brochures, amazing websites. They would have turned up at the airport and there would have been amazing signage and reps meeting them and taking them from their airplane to their accommodation. There would have been people looking after their every need every day, putting them on the right bus at the right place to meet the right activity provider. Somebody would take care of the kids for them. Somebody else would kit them out with all the stuff they needed, and they'd have a really brilliant adventure. Seamless, joined up, absolutely simple and laid out in front of them. Now, let's have a think about the outdoor customer journey, okay? Why are you sniggering? If the Lake District were a leisure centre, if it were one big leisure centre, it would have one marketing department. You know, it would have one brochure, it would have one gym, it would have one set of instructors, it would have one customer service team. What we have is fabulous little thing of all sorts of different businesses all working together in a really sort of organic way. In fact, I use those words there, symbiosis. We all feed off each other and we all have a synergy. We all have a common cause. We all want to help these same people have a really brilliant time right across the outdoor sector at every step in the customer experience. So I want you to think, now, who is in your chain? Who attracts people to your thing and brings them to your place? Who do you need to work with to make sure that their accommodation is absolutely fantastic, their travel arrangements are fantastic, that every step along the way works really beautifully? And then we also discover that we need to connect them, not just physically. By the time they've got to us, it's kind of too late. We need to connect via digital platforms. And if we get that wrong, their experience is not seamless and pleasurable. It's fragmented and disjointed and frustrating. But if we get it right, we're greater than the sum of parts, because every cog is bringing new people in. Everybody's got their different market. Yeah, we're all servicing different people. Collectively, we're much more powerful. But we're only as good as the weakest link. Now, that way we discovered it was really important to kind of integrate that stuff. And effectively, yes, we wanted to physically signpost them, but it was really important to add the digital information as well. But the local knowledge, there is still a fantastic place for the trusted voice and the personal opinion going, if you love this, then you might like this tomorrow, and passing people on to somebody else. Right? People aren't going to come back to us 7 days a week necessarily. We need to know who to work with to keep people's interest up. Now, in terms of, I'll give you a couple of minutes on the post-COVID consumer, and this was consistent worldwide. Massive increase there in families and a massive increase in adult-only groups. Okay, so that's where the market boomed. Of course, everybody wanted to go outside. But what we really noticed was that the gender balance is really coming good now, right? So 50-50 men and women, and that's worldwide as well. They're younger, they're more educated, but there's massive growth in the amount that they're using technical devices and technology within their outdoor experience. This was true across in the States as well. This was a survey from the US. And I'm super tickled that this was the US Outdoor Industry Association. They had a sample size of 631, I think, whereas on a weekend in the Lake District, we got a sample size of 615. So, you know, theirs might be glossy and all laid out, but this is just as credible. And what's interesting, you can see in the US, more likely to be female, younger, and we're really getting there on ethnic diversity now. And that was really noticeable in the lakes. So only 54% white, whereas the national average for England and Wales in the gov.uk stats at the same time was 86%. So we've got 30% more diversity coming to the outdoors than in the national population. That is brilliant, really brilliant. And that was something that we hadn't seen before. It was a whole new challenge, but was an absolutely brilliant challenge. We're finally getting what we wanted. But it came with some problems. Now, I've told you that I'm a mountain guide. I'm also really super qualified to talk about infectious diseases, obviously. But I wanted to introduce you to a new variant of concern that I've labelled the Tootsie 20. Now, Tootsie stands for travelling under the social influence. And this was a boom that we saw during the pandemic, right? It was first spotted in New Zealand, It mutated at around 2010 when Facebook bought Instagram, and they went from a chronological feed to an algorithmic feed. And what happened at that point was, until 2010, if you had a great adventure over the hills and far away, that's where it stayed. And suddenly, people started to get imagery of that into their algorithms and into their social media feeds in a way that they hadn't before. So the world was becoming subjected to all sorts of different imagery. Now, we've just seen this year's words in the dictionary, the new words in the dictionary. Well, selfie-side is one that you can now add. And we saw a real boom of unsafe selfies kind of around the world. Instagrammed is a whole new phrase. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Fly camping, fly parking, and obviously littering. We already had that word, unfortunately. But these were all the kind of the negative side, the downside. And my God, the media doesn't half like a negative story, doesn't it? You know. So we've got to be super careful with that. The reality. How many of you folks have been up Snowdon? Stick your hands up if you've been up Snowdon. Look at that, amazing. That's you and 750,000 other people this year, right? It is like so busy. People want this, but they get this. Similarly, in Norway, they want that, but they get that, okay? And that's a bit of a problem for us. It's actually been a problem all around the world. I just want you to think for a moment about the word count here and the information exchange, okay? So 15 years ago, if you wanted to go swimming in Wasdale, you would have to learn about it from somebody that had been there. And you would talk to somebody with knowledge, and they would kind of tell you all about it, tell you where it is, tell you there's nowhere to park and you need to take a bus, and tell you there are no facilities, so you need to take your picnic and your changing kit and everything else. And then what would happen is you would book your hotel for the night in Keswick, say, and you'd stay with a hotelier and give you a load of advice, make sure you could park your car, tell you where the bus went from, You get the idea. 1,000 more words. All right, you'd pop down to Needle Sports and you buy a wetsuit and you chat to somebody who kind of go, hey, you might want to buy one of these orange floaty things that you can put around your waist as well. That's a really good idea. Thousands more words, more information, right? We are now we saw this like you would not believe. We are now 3 clicks away from people arriving at Wasdale to go swimming, okay? So they'll see it on TikTok. They go, that's cool. That's a good idea. I'm going to Google search that. I'll get a pin drop. Now I know where it is. I'll go on Amazon and I'll buy my wetsuit. And then we wonder why this happens. And that's genuine, right? That is actually in Wasdale in August 21. So what we've got is we've got, you can see what's going on here, can't you? You know, it's a problem worldwide. We've got, these are big players. If there's anybody from the Ordnance Survey or Visit Wales here, I apologise for outing you. But, you know, millions of people are being subjected to a marketing department who are hungry for likes. But they've got followings of millions, these organisations, and they are advertising environmentally sensitive beauty spots, right, and promoting people to go there. So that we've got to take responsibility for that. That's a bit of a challenge. It is a worldwide problem. I'll just move over these quick, but you'll get the idea. Surtourisme, Urlaubsstress, these are all words that have been invented in every different country or language. The guys in Amsterdam removed this because so many people were backing out into a main road and getting run over to get their selfie, right? And here's a bunch of people queuing for a selfie on top of Everest. Right, nowhere's sacred. So what we've got to realise, now don't forget, we got upset about a virus that had a transmission rate of more than 2, right? That was a bad thing. Okay, the transmission rate for this is massive. So one post, 280 likes, 2,500 followers. There's actually, if you look at that hashtag, there's 100 plus posts, so we can multiply that by 100. So the R rate, you know, even if a small percentage of those people actually follow up on this, the R rate is massive, right? You get the gist. We now have the capability to tell thousands of people about things that used to be hidden and just now. That's kind of good because it means that more people are feeling the benefits. It's kind of a challenge because we need to work out where they're getting that information from so we can work with them and communicate with them and integrate with them. So in the lakes, we discovered that all the reasons for how they got these ideas. What you need to then realise is that actually the way people get their information about the outdoors has just changed immeasurably. 60% of travellers share photos, 97% of millennials share photos to social media whilst travelling. Apparently 40% of UK millennials will choose a destination based on how Instagrammable it is. Okay, so that's something you need to get your head around. But the devil's in the detail. If you think you're really IT savvy and you're all over your Twitter account, but your consumers are actually looking on TikTok, then you might as well be speaking a foreign language in a different park. Okay, you need to be in the right place, giving them the right information through the right channels. So there's a challenge for us, isn't it? Right, we've got 51% of people expect to spend more free time in the outdoors and all the problems that might cause us. But actually, they're coming along with less skills and they need us more than ever. And Belinda used the word hope earlier on, and I really do believe it is at the end of a public footpath. And so the chance for us is to kind of go, we have just got what we always wanted. We've got new visitors, greater diversity, fabulous gender balance. It's all going in the right direction. Sure, there are some challenges, but it's up to us whether we see those as problems or whether we see those as opportunities. And I think the secret to understanding that is to view it through the visitor's eyes. So we did a big behaviour change project for the visitor safety group last summer, all about signage, and we discovered that there were some real issues, right? If there are 250 websites saying, hey, come through Aberystwyth and jump off stuff, it's really cool, right? Visit Wales, the hotels, all the massive numbers of websites. You know, come along, come down here, it's a really cool activity. And then when you get there, there's a sign saying, oh, by the way, you know, there's like a steep cliff and deep water. Well, no shit, that's what I've come for. And most importantly, I'm now fully committed, right? I've spent hundreds of pounds on booking my hotel from traveling from London. I'm here, I've booked, I've paid, I've stayed. I am coming to jump off your thing, okay? And now is not the time to put up a sign telling me that it might be a little bit of a bad idea, right? We needed to get that information in earlier in the journey. Likewise, what we discovered is we need to tell people what to do, not tell them what not to do, right? So attracting millions of people to Snowdonia as it became known, and then telling them they can't park anywhere, oh man, that's not really very welcoming. In the Lake District, however, we saw, it wasn't perfect, but we saw fantastic communities connecting with WhatsApp so that you can have somebody at the end of a car park going, my car park's full, but John the farmer has just opened another one 10 minutes down the road, and there's another 120. If you just drive 10 minutes more, there's now a new car park opened and you can get somewhere to pull in your car. So let's not see it as a challenge and a problem. Let's see it as an opportunity. What can we do positively to make this a better experience for everybody? And we can draw that metaphor right across. The visitor safety group have a big deal on the fact that they're not there to police people, they're there to enable people, but we can't rely on this new visitor to be the custodians of the outdoors, right? Because they don't have the same education and information that we had. How many of you folks went on a residential outdoor trip in your teenage years? Stick your hands up again. Yeah, massive. That's where you learnt the countryside code, that's where you learnt how to be outdoors and how to engage with it, right? We've got a generation now for whom that's not necessarily the same. So we need to really, you alluded to it here, this is where the real opportunity is at the moment, right? For all of the reasons that I've mentioned. Get people hooked early, they'll stick with it for life, good for health, good for physical and mental health and well-being. It's also great for our tourist industry. You know, there just are no losers. Now, I put these slides together before we came here, and I was tickled at breakfast this morning as I looked out at the Abseil Tower over the way, right? So I've got to be very careful what I say now. But outdoor education back in the day used to be all about outcomes. We used to go to amazing, beautiful, like transformational, life-changing places with really skilled practitioners. The practitioners are still every bit as skilled. But if we're now focused on austerity and throughput and making it as efficient as possible, that is a different experience. Now, that's not a problem. And actually, it's really easy for somebody like me to be snobbish about this. But that only happened for kind of 50, 60 years. It was only post-Second World War that we started doing that, and it was only the last few years that we've kind of moved to more of this. So let's not lament something as if it was always perfect, okay? But outcomes are very different to output. We need to kind of measure that, especially when outdoor education is under threat. I think it's really important for us to work out who we need to work with to develop that customer journey, to make sure people have a brilliant time and to get those outcomes that we want. right? So we can understand, we can give the people the information they need when they've got the capability and the opportunity and the motivation to change, not when they arrive at the Blue Lagoon and it's too late, okay? How can we get the information to the right place? Who do you need to work with to do that? Now, final few slides, I think I'm just about doing okay. Is to kind of put it under a few key headings for you. We've seen some brilliant campaigns in the last few years that can show us how to do this well, and we can learn from these things. The This Girl Can campaign, it taught us, if it taught us one thing, it's to go where women are, right? There's a reason why we chose camping and the Ordnance Survey when we did our project about COVID. It's going because the people that go camping are the right sort of people. In the Ordnance Survey, they've got millions of them on their books. So we're going to go for those partners, and we're going to work with those organisations because they've got the people that we want. Okay. Similarly, if you want to influence women in exercise, go where the women are, right? Go where the people are that you've got. And we've seen some great examples. The Youth Hosteling Association, that is a bunch of people who have come along to stay in a youth hostel. You've already broken the bond with the sofa. Okay, they've already got off their ass and gone to stay in a youth hostel. So persuading them to be a little bit more active when they're there is probably an easier nudge than going for completely inactive people who never even thought about it. Yeah, so have a think about where are the people that you can persuade and that you can convert. In terms of your influence, can we get in there earlier in the visitor journey? We've seen some really brilliant examples from internet social media campaigns. This genius from the guys at the Avalanche Institute in Norway, varsom.no doesn't even have the word avalanche in its URL, so people can't find it. So what they did was they went, you know what, we're going to put the information, we're going to print it on cubes, and we're going to push it out on the baggage carousels. Because everybody that goes skiing in Norway stands at a baggage carousel staring at it for 20 minutes. And that's where we're going to put our information. In Hawaii, they had a real problem with people getting too close to basking sea turtles. So they developed this hugely successful social media campaign that was all about rewarding people for taking photos that proved that you were at least 10 feet away. You cannot get this photograph if you're closer than 10 feet, right? And they came up with a huge number of imaginative ways of doing it. The very person, the very social media influencer, famous Sharon, who started the canola field problem in Australia, they just engaged her to come up with a success story, right? How to do it properly. There is now a booming industry of farmers planting pesticide-free canola fields in beautiful places and charging for entry so you can make a little bit of revenue out of people wanting to take selfies without damaging the crop. So brilliant. Every time you see a problem, there's some smart aleck coming up with a really brilliant opportunity out of it. And we've seen all of that filter down into all of the brilliant sort of campaigns in the UK this summer. Now, Chris, I said he'll give you a nod. So brilliant piece of research. More than ever, and I was excited to hear Belinda talking about the different blend of people in this room. More than ever, the researchers are giving us the evidence that we need. So we've all known this for years, right? We've all had these anecdotal hunches that what we do is really good for people, but it's always been pretty hard to convince folks or persuade them. And we are better off than we've ever been. So the Your Movement Matters campaign, really excellent. And if you want to think about interventions that might be measurable, replicable and scalable, then you're onto a winner. What can you do to replicate your thing and scale it up? There's some great evidence in here about diversity, about the gender balance, about the fact that 90% of people will exercise or go walking for leisure from their front door. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's all there for the taking. And that's the thing, kind of going, yep, sure. One thing is finding the people, the other thing is finding the evidence, if I'm going to prove the worth of what I do. And is Kay here? Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So the team, I'm not going to steal your thunder because this has only been out for a couple of days, but hats off to you guys as well. Absolutely brilliant report, the Outjoyment report. And I've mentioned camping several times. Right back in 2015, we recognised that camping was a really important gateway for people to access the outdoors. And boy, have these guys proved it. And it's a brilliant report. 97% of campers say happiness is their top motivator for going camping. 93% go camping to enjoy being in nature. So it totally ties in with the other reports that we've had. it's absolutely whopping. 44% are flourishing. 88% are motivated to go camping and take time out of everyday life and have higher levels of psychological well-being than non-campers. So we've always known it, but now we've got the evidence to prove it. And these are using really academically robust measures and produced in a significant way. And decent data size. This is based on 11,000 people. Okay, so these aren't, again, they're not sort of little fringe, sort of small-scale studies. Camping connects people to the outdoors, to nature, to each other, and most importantly, to themselves. What a lovely message to take away from this. So I've deliberately, when I first spoke to Belinda, she wanted me to talk about funding opportunities, and I've deliberately put this in at the end, because hopefully we don't have a question to ask anymore. Because if we now put up the Sport England strategy, the Uniting the Movement strategy, we wrote, as soon as it came out, we wrote this as the OIA's response, sent it to Sport England, what we thought the opportunities were within the strategy. But hopefully I've answered them all already. The priorities, the 5 big issues in Sport England's strategy are to recover and reinvent. Oh man, I mean, we have seen how many people, and we can now demonstrate how many people have gone into the great outdoors to recover from COVID, okay? It's more important than ever and more people have discovered it. In terms of connecting communities, we've seen that more and more people, and it answers the question about our carbon footprint, are now getting active and having adventures from their front door. So actually, this isn't something that people need to travel right around the world for. We have got some of the best green spaces, the best parks and the best wildlife and wilderness of anywhere in the world. Go to the northwest of Scotland, go there on a bike if you're worried about your carbon footprint, but it is as wild and unspoiled and as barren as anywhere else on the planet, I swear. And we've got it all available. So we've also talked, one of the big priorities is positive experiences for children and young people. We have the evidence that if you can give people that high quality deep immersion in nature in their teenage years, they will carry on being active outdoors for the rest of their lives. So you can take the most passionate rock climber, and if you slice them through at the waist, they'll just get in a kayak instead. Yeah, it's not about the activity, it's about the engagement with nature, and it's about the social integration and participation. In terms of connecting with health and well-being, you've just seen how we can deliver on that in spades, and we've now got the evidence to prove that we can do it. And in terms of active environments, oh man, we have got the biggest great green blue gym you could ever imagine, straight out there, straight out the door. So we've got it all going on, right? All we need to do is just join up the dots and articulate that and prove the evidence, and we will be able to untap all of that funding that comes with the Sport England lottery funding to be able to deliver on this agenda. And I think we have a responsibility to not take that stuff for granted anymore, but to become aware of it and to work out how we can articulate that. But it's not just organisations like Sport England. So I put this one in because this has just come live. The Churchill Fellowship, they've always had a thing about adventure and exploration, but they've now got a whole thing on funding projects and funding research projects that are all about using adventure for personal and physical and mental health and well-being. So some great opportunities for you there. So I talked about the different parts of the industry before. I want you to now start to look into this room. We have got this wonderful cocktail in here. We've got the researchers, we've got the academics who can provide the evidence we need. We've got some fantastic products and partnerships to be building. And I think the big question for you guys is now, who do you need to work with so you can actually articulate and demonstrate and evidence the benefits of all the fabulous things that you do, and then really start to reach your potential? Who needs to be in your outdoor hot tub over these next 2 days? And on that note, cheers.